definitely the community vibe of Napier Quarter is amazing, and that's what we were aiming for. But we have the same customers in there every day of the week. Like the local community in Fitzroy love Napier Quarter, and they are there constantly.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. In the hospitality sector, real connections can be made. Connections with producers, with guests, and of course with those you work with. As careers evolve, there are many who find similar beliefs, passions, and land on the same page in regards to the art of hospitality. When those people join forces, they become a force of nature to help forge new paths for the culinary landscape. Eileen Horsnell is the head chef of Melbourne's Napier Quarter. Eileen, how are you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us. You probably have the most photographed dish of 2020, which could be a blessing or a curse.
Are we talking about the anchovy toast?
Yes, that's right. It could be a blessing or a curse. I know signature dishes can be either for many in the industry. What's it been like since you've been at Napier Quarter and the attention that it's garnered?
Well, I actually helped open Napier Quarter 4 years ago when they first opened there. I worked with Daniel Lewis, who's the owner in Brisbane. So I helped him open that, and because I'd moved interstate from Brisbane to Melbourne, I sort of needed to get myself out there for a while. So I helped open for the first 6 months, and then I went to Lume for 2 years, and now I've been back at Napier Quarter again for 2 years. So it's definitely in the last 2 years become a very small wine bar to getting its first chef hat and becoming a non-stop, like we are so busy there constantly, and we open from 9 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and it's packed the entire time. So, and we do like that anchovy toast runs throughout the day. I put it on 4 years ago. So, and I've actually taken it off the menu, but we just special it every day because people would not deal with it not being on the menu. So we have to keep it on. And I guess I love it in a way because it is perfect. Just in its simplicity, it's a perfect little snack. So,
well, for those that haven't had the fortune of trying it, could you tell us what the dish is and the impact that it's had?
Yeah. It's basically a piece of rye toast. So we get our rye bread because we are a very small kitchen, so we get our bread from Baker Blue. And then it's just some mayonnaise, a boiled egg, perfectly boiled egg, green sauce, which is basically the salsa verde, and then anchovy fillets on top. And we're using the Oligusti anchovy fillets, which are meaty and beautiful. So, and a lemon cheek that comes from my lemons will be in season now, so we just use whatever the best lemons are that are in season. I have a great citrus farmer from out in the Yarra Valley who delivers those to us every week. So, yeah. But in everything that we do there, in the anchovy toast to all of the other dishes, it's always focused on the producers that we're getting. We use about 4 different farms there just for fruit and veg. We've started growing our own stuff out in Newstead, so we're working on a patch. So that's our next venture, basically. So we have the Napier Quarter, the wine bar, then we have the guest house next door, and now we have a patch out in Newstead. So I'll be working on that 1 day a week to sort of get it up and going, which is really exciting to be, something outside of the kitchen and working with the vegetables that we're going to use in the kitchen. So, yeah.
You mentioned that you worked with Daniel Lewis in Brisbane and then connected in Melbourne as well. What is it about that connection and working together that works for you guys?
Daniel and I've known Daniel since I was maybe 25. I used to go into his cafe. So we started this amazing cafe in Brisbane called Pearl. And he just did the whole vibe of it was just a step up from the rest at that time. And so I regularly went there for breakfast or just for a piece of cake. And it was amazing. And actually all of the chefs in Brisbane, that was like their favourite cafe. Everyone went there. So we started talking then, and eventually, maybe by the time I was 29, I started working for him, and we've just had a great connection ever since. I guess our values align with what we want to do, with wanting to progress and both being like quite ambitious. And we sort of have this perfect link up. Like I'm on food, he does like the styling, and then Simon, who's a part of Napier Quarter, does all of the wine. So it works. The three of us together work really well in the dynamics and like the strengths that we have. And I guess we see our strengths. But Dan and I, have worked together such a long time, because basically even when I have left in the past, when I did go to Lume for 2 years, we spoke all the time. I still helped and did a bit of menu consulting for Napier Quarter. We just sort of, I think he loves my style and I like his style. So it's hard to separate in a way.
You mentioned that you were there at the beginning before you moved to Lume, and we can talk about Lume in a little while, and then you've come back. How different is Napier Quarter to the initial idea?
From the initial idea, look, I don't think we always crave to be successful, but I didn't realise it would become as successful, which is very pleasing. I think that we started off, we just wanted to do quite simple, almost farmhousey style of food. And then I don't know if it's my drive or my ego, it just sort of kept on pushing us a little bit more. And the menus just became, we started off with just me and one other chef in that kitchen, open 7 days a week, so and open all day. So we sort of slowly built up. Now we've got a team of 6 chefs. And very solid, like head chef, sous chef, junior sous chef in that tiny space, which seems ridiculous. But the size of our kitchen, I keep on bringing up. It's basically the size of, it's 2 square meters pretty much. It's tiny. You can fit 2 chefs in there. And there's also the dishwasher is in there. So I guess like what we thought we could achieve in that space has gone far beyond that, because we make all of our own cakes, and we make everything that we can from scratch. The only thing we don't make is basically our bread, because we do not have the kind of space to be making bread there. But it's really hard to explain to people unless they see the size. Like the dining room as well seats about 30 people, but that's that's like sardines in a tin, and that's sort of but people love it. Definitely the community vibe of Napier Quarter is amazing, and that's what we were aiming for. But we have the same customers in there every day of the week. Like the local community in Fitzroy love Napier Quarter, and they are there constantly. And then you'll feel on the weekends it's very much out of from people from surrounding suburbs. But I guess in saying that, the community feel like that really got us through those difficult times through COVID last year, because we do have those people that come in there every single day and that did support us. Like they supported us all the way through, and with only having people allowed to come from 5 kilometres away, like we are so grateful that we've built the restaurant on the basis of community. So that definitely became more highlighted throughout those times as well. So, and we've become even the regulars that we did talk to every day, now there's full-blown relationships. Like it's hard for me to walk from the kitchen to the cool room, which is out the back of the restaurant, without being stuck talking to people all the way through. So I think my sous chef just goes like, oh, Eileen's off talking to like 5 different customers on the way to the fridge now. So we did. It's a really. I'm really proud of what we've done with the space, and also with the guest house, that only just opened in March last year, or the end of February, and then obviously it was closed again for most of last year. But we are trying to do a beautiful experience where the guests get to become part of our family for the few days that they come and stay there. And we're hoping to, well, we're not hoping to, we're going to this year start doing some, I don't want to call them cooking schools, presentations in the guest house. So I'm jumping all over the place, but basically, Dan and I, with the patch that we've got out in Newstead, with me working on that, I want to, learn a bit more about farming and gardening and that sort of stuff, because it's a very big interest of mine, and it all works together with preparing the food as well. But I want to grow it and then use it to teach people how to cook with the stuff that they've grown in these presentations. So that's what we're looking to for spring, to start doing that. So that's really exciting. Like, it's ever in such a small space, small restaurant, then we've got the guest house and the patch. There's so much to do and so much going on. It's never a boring place to be, and Daniel and Simon are always very excited and inspirational about like what new projects that we can start to do together, basically.
You mentioned the shared values between yourself, Simon, and Daniel. Can you tell us about what they are and the offering that you're giving and trying to achieve in regards to hospitality in Napier Quarter?
Yeah. So as I said, a neighbourhood community-focused bar. We focus really highly on the artisans, so the producers. We use all local producers for our charcuteries, for our cheeses, and we definitely try and keep that in Victoria, definitely after how last year was. So supporting all the local like artisan makers around the area, and then with the food, all of the small plates that we offer. So mostly we do small plates there because we don't have the space to be doing meals individually, so it's all very shared, the offering. I use farmers, so Somerset Heritage. I use another farmer out in Keilor so all organic producers, basically. So that's what we focus our small plates and our menu on. So we all share, I guess Daniel, Simon and I all share a passion for supporting small local companies, farmers, etc. You'll definitely see that with Simon's wine list. There's a lot of local. He does love, and I guess all of us do love, Italian wines and Spanish wines. They're still featured on the menu, but that definitely comes across with the food as well. My influence has heavily been sort of that a little bit Spanish Italian vibe throughout my cooking, and so and Daniel's, I guess, style very much suits a Euro style as well. So I guess for all of us that blends together really well. Yeah.
You mentioned you'll have your hands in the soil at Newstead, growing your own produce for the restaurant. Where does that connection for you? Where did it all start?
Well, basically from my nan when I was a kid. She was a farmer, and then basically by the time when I was old enough to start helping her, she'd stopped farming. She'd obviously retired, but she just had the biggest vegetable garden in her backyard. Her whole yard was just dedicated to growing vegetables, and her whole front yard was dedicated to growing flowers. So she really taught me the value of, and I guess the values of the seasons going past from a child. And she used to do a lot of, if there was an excess amount of beans, she'd like be pickling them. Like, she taught me how to do all of that so she taught me to start making pickles when I was about 10, and how to bake cakes. And then we used to make stocks together. And so she was very much making everything from scratch. Like, we were doing the pickles, we were doing stocks, baking cakes, and it was all the stuff coming from her garden a lot of the time. So When we'd make a cake, we'd decorate it with beautiful flowers from my front garden. So I really loved that connection to knowing where your food came from, basically, from picking it and then eating it fresh out of the garden rather than going to a store and having no connection at all with it. She used to kill her own quails and chickens as well. So, there was, I think the first time I watched a chicken get killed, I was a little bit upset, but I still ate it. So, but that connection for me has always been there, and it's always been something, I guess, living in the city has definitely, after a while, just become like I want a little bit of a country lifestyle as well, a little bit of balance between the two. And definitely after last year, I just put things in perspective. So I just said to Dan and Simon, look, I want to start working out there. So I've actually part-time moved to the country and I part-time live in the city, which is really great because then I get to be out and work on the land a bit. And I also get that nice balance of being in the city and still running the restaurant. But yeah, that definitely came from my nan, as much as that might upset my mum to hear that sometimes.
Well, let's look at the early days in your career where you first got a start in hospitality. What was it like in the kitchens back then? Because you've worked for some pretty incredible restaurants through your career.
I have. I think when I very first started, I was only 16, and I don't think I really knew what I was doing at all. So I sort of feel the first few years that I was actually in kitchens, I don't think I was mature enough to really know that the whole vibe of the kitchen was very different back then. I grew up in it's not really a small town, but on the central coast of New South Wales, so it's very, there's not much foodie stuff going on. So I guess my career didn't take off until I was around 20 when I moved to Queensland, and I started cooking with, I think the most inspirational person that I started cooking with was Brenda Forden, who owned a restaurant called Mondo Organics. It was back then, it's closed down completely now, but back then it was the first licensed organic restaurant. And working there, I felt definitely just started getting completely inspired by using all of the farmers. So, and just Brenda is a really inspirational, strong woman who'd been, I think she's about 60 now, but she'd been cooking since she was about, I don't know, 19, but really, Italian style. She did cooking schools there. She's done tours. She's written 2 books. She was very inspirational. And then while I was there, I got an opportunity to work at Urbane, which was a fine dining, and I'd never done that before. And I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm scared. Anyway, I went there for just over a year, and I loved it. And that's when I led on to going to Biota after that. So that was a really amazing experience. Helping open a restaurant. So that was the first time I'd ever helped open a restaurant. It's really tough. And then the second time was at Napier Quarter helping open. I don't know why anyone wants to start open a restaurant like from scratch, because it's very it's really tough. But at Biota it was an intense time for all of us. I think we opened the restaurant. It's all a blur now, but I feel like we opened it over Easter weekend, was the first opening weekend. So we'd really set our standards high. So Biota in that time, it was a very sleepless few months of. I think we were in there at 7 a.m. every day, and we would go home at about 2 a.m. So that's what an opening team of a fine dining restaurant feels like, I think. And thankfully, things are a bit different now in the industry. So that's 10 years ago. So I'm thankful that, that the industry norms are not 17-hour days anymore. So, and And I remind my young chefs of that often.
At Biota, James Viles really tried to create a sense of place in regards to the restaurant, and foraging was very much part of the makeup of the offering. What was it like working with James and that exploration of the local area?
He was, he was very inspiring to me because I'd never met someone who worked with that philosophy as much before I met James. And he grew up in Bowral, so he had like quite a connection to the place as well. He knew all of the hiding spots for all of like the wild watercress and wild herbs growing around the place. And we did used to go foraging for all of our, I remember just at Belanglo Forest, which is a scary place at night time, but we used to go there to pick all of our mushrooms.
Wow.
Which is scary. When you go to Belanglo Forest, it says enter at your own risk.
Wow.
So, yeah, because that was where Ivan Milat did all those things. So that's a whole nother story. There's a lot of ghost stories around Bowral as well, so it was interesting in multiple ways. But we did this. We went and met some. He used to get a breeder to basically we would visit the pigs throughout their life until they would come in and go to the abattoir and then end up in our dining room. So yeah, we did regular visits out to farms and met the animals. I got really connected to one of the pigs. I couldn't eat it. I remembered which one it was when I was cooking it. But we I just couldn't. I don't want to taste your meat. Like I quite liked it. So yeah, we were very connected to the land and the animals out there. And I think that I thought I was ready to move to a small town like that. But I was a bit too young to be in a town where Barrel's a beautiful place to visit, but living there as a 27-year-old queer person wasn't really ideal. A single person in a restaurant. So I learned so much from James and his whole philosophy, and I think that I still carry some of that with me. And definitely Sean was the head chef there as well. So James was executive chef and Sean was head chef. I think that those two had worked together quite a bit before, and they worked really, like, those two were just amazing, like wizards basically in the kitchen. And I guess Sean Quaid's wizardy ways, and then mixed with James's ideals of the land and how we were going to get our produce and where it was coming from was a really great match. Yeah.
You mentioned Sean Quaid's wizardy ways, and Lume dining could be described in that manner. What was it like going to that kitchen and doing food with such a different connection to produce?
Well, the reason Sean asked me to come in there and work is because he wanted me to bring that connection more, that he's very creative in a way, with, I don't know if you've tasted his food before, but yeah, where a lot of the time you don't know what you're eating when you're eating it, and you're taken on a journey with every dish. He wanted me there to source local farmers' produce, to find more individual small-scale places, because he really wanted that to be a part of Lume as well. So that was one of the reasons that I was there. Also that Sean and I had worked together quite a few years before, and we did have a really good working relationship, and he needed to be, I guess, step out of the kitchen more and let me take charge. But his style of cooking to my style of cooking is extremely different. So I was basically running the kitchen and making sure that we had the best produce in there, because I think that as much as Sean really, really cares about that, but he's driven more by creating something extremely unique than he does to spend the time searching the producers, basically. Whereas I'm passionate about what producers we're using, and the food, I let it speak for itself a little bit more. So, yeah, with Sean and I think after I left Lume, I said, let's not talk for a year, but we're talking again now. Just because we were really tired. No, and he's moved over to LA now, and he's making vegan cheese, which is incredible. Like, he gave me lots of samples before he left. He's just like, I don't know where he comes up with the things that he's doing sometimes. Like, he's making better out of hemp seed. Yeah, and I was just like, what? How are you actually doing that? Like, yeah, I've had other chefs say to me, I've tried to make it, just guessing what he's doing, and they can't figure it out. So he'll have, I'm sure he'd let me know, but yeah, I don't think I need to be making hemp cheese over here.
Well, your style of cooking, as you mentioned, has an amazing connection to produce and letting it shine on the plate. Tell us about the connection that you have with farmers and what it's been like trying to create those connections over the years.
It was very interesting when I first moved here, because I've been in Melbourne now almost 5 years. And when I had fantastic suppliers that I'd spent like 10 years finding or over the years getting in Brisbane. And I had, 3 great farmers that I used, and all of my suppliers, like my meat supply, I had great connections up there. And when I moved here, I felt like I had to start again. So I remember talking to this farmer, and he owns Days Walk Farm. He's at No, he used to own Somerset, sorry. He's since sold it to a girl, Chloe. But anyway, when I called him, it's almost like I had to do an interview to explain who I was and why I cared about using his produce and what I was going to do with his produce, because he wanted to make sure that people were treating the food that he was spending his life growing was treated with respect. So I did that, and I had to do it with quite a few people, because a lot of these farmers, they'll only supply to certain restaurants that they respect each other. These farmers walk in, and if a chef's rude to them, they just walk out again. They're not going to put up with it. So it was almost like an interview process. With Somerset, and then with Days Walk, they only allow a certain number of restaurants to use them. And then Mick, who I get all my citrus from, his dad has owned an orchard for 60 years, and now he does experimental farming on there. So he does alpine strawberries and really beautiful berries, and he grows all weird and wonderful different herbs. So he does all of that, and he just asks chefs, what do you want? And I think he only supplies to 10 of us, and he asks us, what do you want me to plant? And he'll plant something especially for you and then bring it in for you. But he's saying that his dad has that orchard. They have the best Maya lemons that I've ever tasted, and I'm so excited that Maya lemon season's back again, because they are amazing. I preserve them every year because we would just want to continue to have them throughout the year. So I think that I slowly, and then with Jody, with Great Ocean Ducks, she only, and this is the thing, and I guess a lot of chefs don't have the time or patience for it, because I have to order on a Friday for delivery the next Thursday, and that's with a lot of places. I get my cheese from Holy Goat, and I have to let her know on Saturday, and then it gets delivered on Wednesday. Some people don't want to think that far ahead, and they want to see what stock they've got. So I guess with all of the small guys, you've got to build a really great relationship with them, which feels nice, because I feel like I get to hear about the goats that are producing the milk that we can get our cheese from. I get a call oh, this isn't matured yet, And, you know, they're so proud of what they do. They would never just, they will wait and communicate you talking directly to the person who's making the cheese. Like, it just feels so much nicer than going, okay, I'm just going to call up the local cheese company and order a cheese and then complain if something's not available. Like, I just say to the staff, that's not available today because the farmer, it's, you know, it's not mature enough to cheese, or the salami hasn't aged enough, or like this. Like, so we don't compromise on quality forever, and it's always about using the small guys and supporting them and not getting things through them. I guess almost I do all the middle work. Like, you know, I could basically be a supplier to all the restaurants. But I love to talk directly to the person who's making it or growing it. I don't want to just call up a supplier and have them secondarily explain everything to me. So yeah, that's almost a full-time job, doing all of that stuff, and I love it. So
your plans for this year are to grow your own produce. Is there anything that you're planning to grow or excited about growing?
I'm pretty much excited to grow everything because I'm excited to grow good carrots because I can't grow carrots. I've tried at home so many times, and I know that sounds really boring, but I'm just excited to grow everything. Like, excited for beans. I love anything on a vine, but I want to grow, like, we've got a sort of small orchard around the place. If you've ever seen my menus, every savoury dish I have in the menu has fruit in it. I'm a bit meat and fruit obsessed, so I'm excited to see all of the quinces. There's apples growing, there's pears growing out there. Like, I'm excited for berry season. I do love fruit a lot, and so I will be excited to see all of that stuff that we've like started planting. And some of these trees were already established on the property when Dan got it. So I'm excited because we basically just did one plant run over summer, and we just planted a whole heap of tomatoes just to sort of get the soil activated and to see how everything was growing. And we got so many tomatoes, we realised that next tomato season we would almost have enough tomatoes to supply the restaurant completely. So at the moment it's all practice and playing around and seeing what works in the area. But we grew so many pumpkins as well. Like, we just want to start basic and maybe just do one large crop of things and see if it can supply the restaurant. But then see if we need to grow it even further. So we're looking at getting a greenhouse now. And I don't know. I don't even know which vegetable I'm most excited to grow. I'm just excited to be a part of the whole picture, you know, and the whole process of it coming from a seed and us planting it and then taking it into the restaurant and preparing it and then serving it to a customer, like the whole lifespan of the vegetable. I guess that's what I'm excited about. Just stepping the whole way along. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds amazing, and very much looking forward to see how that manifests on the menu moving forward as you create your own produce. Congratulations on the amazing success that you guys have had in the last couple of years, and we're honoured to have you on Deep in the Weeds today. Please keep in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.